as Heidi mentioned.
Sorry, there you go.
As Heidi mentioned, my name is Gavin Alexander. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am the full-time fellow of the SJC Standing Committee on Lawyer Wellbeing. Welcome to lots of new faces at this meeting and lots of our recurring folks. It looks like a really great group today. So quickly wanted to introduce our guest, Joe Milowek, who is first off, a wonderful person. I've gotten to know him through a couple different connections over the past few months, and I just cannot say enough positive things. He's here today because he is the founder of the Lawyers Depression Project, which is a grassroots organization set up to really provide a space for lawyers and legal professionals from around the world to come together over a virtual network to have peer support sessions where we all just come and talk and share. And I can say from personal experience, I have been attending these meetings at least, I try to make at least 2 of them a month. And as a person who identifies as and has the diagnosis of severe chronic depression, it has been wonderful to find a group that I can really just talk about what I'm going through with and hear others who are going through, if not the same circumstances, circumstances that really matter to them and that they feel that they can share in this group. As we all know, this issue of stigma, of finding opportunities to be able to speak about your lived experience with mental health in the legal profession is a massive challenge. And the Lawyers Depression Project is a fantastic tool to combat that stigma. So if anyone is interested in signing up for or attending meetings of the Lawyers Depression Project, I'll pop the link in the chat. It is completely free, and I strongly encourage anyone interested to give it a shot. Joe also, in addition to founding the LDP, occupies a particularly interesting role, I think, to this group, in that he is both a practicing partner and the director of lawyer wellbeing for Quinn Emanuel, which, for those who don't know, is a large international firm with over 800 attorneys worldwide. As Heidi mentioned, we previously had Lori Capello, who I believe is here today, speak. She is the director of wellbeing for Mintz here in Boston, and we've had a number of HR side wellbeing professionals speak. But I think Joe is in an interesting role in that he is both practicing as a partner and the director of wellbeing for his firm. So without further ado, Joe, we are absolutely thrilled to have you here, and I'll turn over the floor to you.
Well, thank you, Gavin, and thank you, Heidi. It's good to see you all. Good to meet everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to come into your community. It's a very impressive group and inspiring work that you all are doing. I think that, for my brief comments, I'll talk a little bit about the Lawyers Suppression Project. Gavin kind of told you what it's about, so we could skip it. But I'll also tell you a little bit what we're doing at Quinn. And I think probably the most useful part will be opening it up for discussion, because that's where we'll learn from each other. So, starting with the Lawyers Depression Project, the genesis of it was I had written an article disclosing my experience with depression, and at the my experience with depression was that I had depression. I didn't realize I had depression, and so I was kind of like isolated and not knowing what was going on. It was a very it's kind of scary experience, and then I did not share that with anyone for a good decade or so, because I didn't want to impact my reputation at my firm. So I just stayed quiet with it. And I think, always a little bit in the back of my mind, I kind of thought like maybe I could be helpful if I talked about it, but I never did. And ultimately I got to a point where I had another bout of depression while I was working at Quinn Emanuel as a partner, and my bouts of depression are always like existential. It's like, what's the point of everything? What am I doing? Why am I doing this job? And I always start dwelling on the lack of meaning in my job, which I kind of feel like maybe I'm not aligned with my purpose in doing litigation or patent litigation, IP litigation. It doesn't really fulfill some internal core meaning or purpose that I have. So I start to dwell on that, and it gets me really feeling sick. I get very anxious and feel trapped that, I kind of have to keep doing this job because I've established a certain standard of living. I don't want to upset things for my family. And so I've had that several times. And, around the time of disclosing my experience, I was feeling like, I was depressed. I was not very particularly interested in my job. And, but I had also had a traumatic experience where I hadn't slept for several days, working on a project or working on trying to settle a case, and I had what I now refer to as like a spiritual awakening experience, where I had a shift in priorities and shift in perspective, and I sort of lost a lot of the fear that I had about talking about my issues, and started to focus on what my real values were, which were basically like love, connectedness, family, my dog, the things that really matter in life. And, connectedness and helping people are at the top of the list. And so without like fear as the motivator, I think that love and connection became my motivation. So it was a really cool shift. I'm really grateful for that moment. And so when I had that shift, I started to do all kinds of stuff I never did before, like yoga and meditation, and started to get into mindfulness, started to read about spirituality and all different religions. And while I was meditating, the partner or the head of my firm said, we have to go out and write an article, to like market ourselves. Like each of us had to write an article. So I was meditating on what I would, not really what I would write, but just meditating. And the thought came to me, write about my depression and try to help people who were in my situation. And so I did that, and I didn't want to leave people hanging, like if there were isolated people. So I just threw in a line at the end, if you're interested in an online support group, let me know. And so like a very overwhelming response, like hundreds of people responded and shared their experiences. It was very humbling. And a lot of people said, yeah, we're really interested in an online support group for lawyers. So I was like, oh, okay. So let's see what's out there. So I did some searches and found some support groups. Really didn't find like an online support group for lawyers. So, and now I know that there's a lot of work that's been going on, a lot of really great work by a lot of people. There are support groups for lawyers. So it's not like we did anything novel per se, but I couldn't really find anything. So I started up this online support group for lawyers, and the idea was to have it so that if someone was like isolated and not afraid to like talk about their situation, they could join and be anonymous within the group. And so we set it up using Google, what's it called? G Suite. So it's like we have our own little organization, and each person that joins gets their own email address and their own email account. And so they can join calls anonymously and get joined by video. And then we have like a web forum where people can ask each other questions and share information and resources. And, it started very, very small scale. I created my own website on Wix, very fledgling little thing. And it's been growing, and a lot of really great people have joined and volunteered to help. And so where we are now is we have like over 600 members from around the world. And it's not just for lawyers, it's for anyone in the legal profession. And we even have some people in like investment banking. We're not going to turn anyone away because it's just a community. And it's a really a great group. It does provide people with the knowledge that they're not alone. It provides a place for connection, for sharing, and for me on like a spiritual level, what I think is so beautiful about it is when we come together, there's like a magic that happens with the calls. So like someone will bring up an issue they feel very alone dealing with, whatever, it's almost any issue. Like one time a woman came on and said, I have twins and I'm having this crisis issue. And then like, sure enough, there was someone else on the call who had also had twins in a similar crisis issue. It's just like, there's just so many situations on the calls that are just so like beautifully scripted by something beyond, this world. And from my perspective, it's really beautiful to watch. And so it's really great because I feel like I don't really have to do any work. Like we get on these calls and we just let it happen. And it just organically, very beautifully, people find support and hope just through the connections and conversations. So it's really beautiful to watch. And so, during the pandemic, a lot of people, we all went remote. And so we've had obviously a big uptick in members. So we've been onboarding like 20 new people a month. And so it's been good. I guess, it's funny, when we first started, the issue was, there's not enough people. It's like I would join a call and it would be like one other person. And now it's like, now we have too many people. It's like, now what do we do when 20 people join a call? And so we have multiple facilitators and we try to split out into breakout rooms. But I think that's a good problem to have, is too many people. So that's kind of what we're doing with the Lawyers Depression Project. We typically do 2 or 3 meetings a week. So we do Tuesdays at 1:30 Eastern, and then Thursday at, there's Gavin, 11 meetings in August alone. We do a Thursday night meeting from 8:15 p.m. Eastern to 9:15 p.m. And that time is a relic of one of our facilitators had just enough time to get home from work and, be with his daughter for a little bit. So we added the 15 minutes off of 8 o'clock, and we've kept that time. And then we have a she, her, they group on Wednesdays, or every other Wednesday, which is led by one of my co-founders. So I should mention really quickly my co-founders. So there's Julia Clayton is the vice president, and she's an attorney, like deputy attorney general in California, and struggles with OCD. And then there's another guy named Reed Murtaugh. He's a outspoken person about mental health issues. He writes and talks about his experience with bipolar 2. He's from Lafayette, Indiana. He's a solo practitioner. He's a co-founder and facilitator. And also Julia recently disclosed her struggles with OCD, so she goes around and talks now too. Then we have a guy named Darren Weisenberg, who's a criminal defense attorney, solo criminal defense attorney. And I forget my co-founders. There's David Evan Marcus. He's a practicing rabbi and a judicial referee in New York, and really, really quite a bright guy. And then we have a board of like 15 people, like a psychiatrist on the board, a therapist, actually probably have like 3 therapists on the board, and a lot of people who speak about mental health and well-being issues, like Brian Cuban, Lisa Smith, Stephanie Mitchell-Hughes, Bobby Sue Doyle Hazard is from, she was in-house counsel with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now she's with NBC. And so we have a good diverse group in terms of like spread from, solo practitioners to government to big law, to a lot of speakers. We could do better on diversity in terms of I guess less represented groups. I don't know that we have representation from the LGBT community in our executive ranks. Gavin, if you want to step up, then we have a Black woman on our board, but not on our executive committee. So we have work to do on diversity and inclusion. So that's kind of a little bit about the LDP. It's a great group. I love it very much. And just briefly, I know I'm probably not supposed to talk for too long, but now that I'm getting into it, I'm having fun. So I'll tell you a little bit about my work at Quinn, because it might be interesting. So I've been working as a litigator at Quinn, and it's not really, like I said, it's not really my thing. I don't really love it. I'm starting to get a little better at it, but I wanted to do something more in the mental health well-being area. So I approached the head of our firm and proposed that I would do more like half my time with partnership and half my time doing well-being. And to my surprise, he said yes. So I was very happy with that. This is a fairly recent thing. This is back like March or April of this year that I took on this new role. And so the first thing I did is try to learn as much as I could about what do directors of well-being do. So I went to a bunch of conferences, talked to a bunch of people, and I'm still kind of a noob. And what I did do, which I'm happy with so far, is I emailed our whole firm and said, who wants to be part of the Quinn Emanuel well-being team? And got a great warm response. So we have 100 volunteers from all over the firm who are interested in being part of the team. And then among them, we have about 25 who were training in mental health first aid, and they'll be in all of the different offices around the world. And the idea is that if you have an issue, you don't have to necessarily go to the top of the firm. You don't necessarily have to go to the partner you're working with. You can go to the QE Wellbeing Ombudsman, and we'll be a confidential resource that you can talk to, and you can find out about policies and what are my options. And so hopefully that helps some people. I was sort of doing this informally before taking on the role. Having disclosed my experience, that opens the door to and welcomes people to come to you. So like a lot of people come to me just because I have disclosed. So that's a cool effect of disclosing, is it allows people to feel comfortable coming to you. So people come and they say, like, I'm hanging on by a thread. I don't know what to do. I'm gonna lose my job. And then just like, okay, let's figure out. Do you have infrastructure in place for a psychiatrist, a therapist? Who are you working with? And so far, so good. Every time somebody comes to me, we work it out. We figure out the best way forward with them, making sure that they get help. If they need to take a period of leave, the firm is really great about leave. And the great thing about it is that, like, it's really the fact that it's not talked about that's the issue, because the way the firm handles people who have mental health issues or addiction issues is really great. It's like, yeah, you could take a month off, we'll work with you with the Family Leave Act, whether you could get paid by the state or you could choose to use vacation or not. There's plenty of options. And there are people who have done it and have come back and are successfully working, but this is unknown to everyone. And so like when you find yourself in that situation, you're in crisis, you don't know that, many of your partners, many of your colleagues have had mental health issues. Some of them have left and come back and been okay. And so the idea really is to make that public. And so those are some of the early steps. The other thing that I think maybe is notable that I would share is when I first started to try to like bring in speakers and get the firm, doing things around well-being, I went about it like, hey, let's do meditation firm-wide, and that was rejected because not everyone is on the spiritual path necessarily, or thinks meditation is all great. But there are many ways to skin the cat, I guess that's a saying. So one thing for the meditation, I got a former Quinn associate who's now a mindfulness yoga teacher, a meditation teacher. She's coming in and doing twice a month meditation and yoga classes, and I just offered it as like a voluntary group side thing. So it wasn't like sanctioned by the firm, it was just like a side thing, and couched it as mindfulness-based stress reduction, and that got the thumbs up. So if I went in straight as meditation, thumbs down. Stress-based mindfulness, stress reduction, thumbs up. So we've got like 100 people signed up for the mindfulness course, got 100 people signed up for yoga, and so that's good stuff. And then here's one other thing. When I had speakers come in to talk about their experience with mental health issues, and had a very poor showing by the firm. So we've got thousands of people, and we probably had like 20 people show up to hear the speakers about addiction and mental health experiences. So I was a little disappointed. So I was like, how do I reach these people? The people at my firm are like A-type, supercharged, highly competitive. So I brought in speakers who were Olympic trainers, and they talked about the importance of rest and recovery and mindfulness to well-being and to flourishing and to peak performance. And so that had a really great draw. Lots of people in my firm are very much like, we have to win cases. We're really competitive. And to hear from an Olympic trainer about how to up their game, that was a good sell. So I guess what I've learned so far is to try to meet people where they are, and not try to force my agenda on them. So I think that's probably it for now. I'm happy to talk with everyone and stop talking myself. So thanks for listening. Thank you. So,